You're listening to the StudioPTBO podcast, where we talk all things marketing to help you build and grow your business online. Welcome to the latest episode. And welcome to another episode of the StudioPTBO podcast. We are back, and we're back at it again with another guest. Super excited. We're headed into the end of the year. If this is your first time tuning into the StudioPTBO podcast, I want to say thank you. Really on a mission to help passionate and energetic entrepreneurs with marketing and mindset knowledge to help them build, grow, and scale their business online. Before we get to introducing our guest, my man, Neil Morden, what is happening? Life is good? Life is good?
Yeah, life is great. We've had a great day so far of strategy, tactical sessions for planning for next year. So it's you got to plan. You got to make a plan in life, right?
100%. And our guest was. We were just talking about that. Talking about the calendar.
In the green room.
Is it in your calendar in the green room? So we're gonna pick his ear on some time management stuff as well. But Neil, introduce our guest. Who do we have today?
We have Rory Douglas today on the show, and Rory is an author, a thought leader, life coach, financial educator. He lives in California, and he's known as the Street Professor. Rory, where did that name come from? Is that self-proclaimed, and what does that mean? I'm going to guess EQ over IQ.
I love that.
Okay.
Hey, thanks you guys for actually having me on your show. I'm really, really happy about that and excited to talk to you guys. But the name actually came from the streets to corporate suites, simply because I was most likely not to succeed when I was coming up in elementary school. I got kicked out of every elementary school and every high school, and I was labeled a troubled youth. It wasn't that I was a troubled youth. It was simply because I suffered from something that was called dyslexia. I read things backwards. So running away from my disability, whenever the teacher would have open book or tests, I would disrupt the class and get thrown out the class. And it became a cycle and a habit. However, it was when I got a little older, my mom noticed when we were going someplace, and she insisted I read the instructions. And she said, hey, read them. So I tried to read the instructions. I was reading things backwards. So my mom went to the principal and the counselors. I received help for it. And I actually overcame my disability. I always tell people you could be disabled, but you could have a disability, but you don't have to be disabled. So that's the bottom line. So actually, I went from the streets because during that transition, I was pretty much out there like a lot of young kids. And I was pretty much had no direction. And I went from the streets to corporate suites. Unfortunately, I never really got involved with anything crazy, gangs and things of that sort, but I was among those individuals. And I was considered a leader. I was a very bright person. It was simply because I had that disability. But once I received help for the disability, went back to school, got straight A's. So I always tell people I went from the streets to corporate suites.
I love that. So like, how did you get here today? You know, I want to back up. Like we know like streets to suites, but like to the life coaching, like, you know, what was there a defining moment in your life that, like, I always like asking this question because we like, I find that when I reflect back on, you know, even my short entrepreneurial journey, there have been defining moments that have led me to where I am today. Was there any defining moment that really led you into life coaching, into speaking, becoming an author? Like, tell us about that process.
You know, that's funny that you said that, because that's a good question. I use my disability as my superpower. In other words, I reflect back on my pain to produce my purpose in present time. So all entrepreneurs, you got to have a strong why. And you got to have that strong why. Once you lose that why, that's when you start to dwindle. So I use the things that I've been through in life as my why, somewhat like an actor. An actor does something called substitute. They substitute. If they want to cry, they think about something that happened in their life and it makes them cry. So I use those skills to be able to substitute my success. So that's the reason why I always tell people that success is often found in a pile of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
It seems appropriate that we're interviewing you today on Giving Tuesday, because you seem like a really altruistic person who's really out to help people in life get better and improve and get out of bad circumstances. Where did that foundation come from? Was that your childhood, your parents, people around you, mentors? Walk us through that.
You know, it's funny because when you're young and you actually have certain things that you deal with, you actually spend a lot of time with yourself. Even during your disability or during your setbacks, you spend a lot of time with yourself. That's why we see people who go to prison, they get out of prison, they learn so much because they're in there isolated, spending time with themselves.
Yeah,
and what I've found in life is that the average person is, you're only going to do two things. You're either going to be working to fulfill your own vision or working to fulfill someone else's vision. And in most cases, most people are spending more time outside of themselves than with themselves. So that's where my passion comes from basically spending time with myself, knowing what it feels like to have hurt, setbacks, disappointments, the whole 9 yards. So I feel for the common person. So that's the reason why I'm excited about what I do. My whole passion is to help people pursue their purpose. And I always tell people, when you find your passion in life, you will find your purpose.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's really interesting. Like, you know, you talk about the idea of purpose. Like, a lot of my background really comes from, you know, and I actually wrote about this the other day about purpose and how it's such a deep philosophical thing that we are all chasing. And some people point to religion, others point to living life to the fullest. Other people point towards fixing your mindset. I'm just really curious about how you came to this realization that it was purpose that drives the entrepreneur or drives the person, or like, where did you learn that? Because like, for me, it was my Christian background. Like, I grew up in a Christian environment, and I always had this larger sense of purpose of like, you know, it's like there's something bigger than myself. And that's kind of like where my purpose started. But then it started to really, I guess, develop into more of like, you know, creating something. Like, I feel like entrepreneurs, like, we're constantly wanting to go into the future, pull in the future to the now. And it's like, we're always creating something. And I feel like my purpose is being created. But like, where did purpose start for you? Was it a philosophical understanding of purpose, or like, what does purpose really mean to you?
You know, all of us, in most cases, we have a parent, we have parents, and we have a plan. And I think that the purpose lies in between both of those, because most people's parents influence them on where they want to go in life. But most people have misplaced purpose because you're pretty much living vicariously through your parents. They want you to do this, they want you to do that. But I think for me, basically dealing with the disability at a young age, I got a lot of time to spend with myself. So I was able to identify what I really wanted. I could dream and imagine what I wanted to do. Even though I had a disability, I didn't let it stop me. So I really believe that your purpose is actually going to come based off of your experience. That's the reason why I always tell people success is often found in the pile of mistakes. And there's never any losses, there's only lessons. So most people are afraid to make a mistake. They're afraid to actually lead to a dream or their destiny. So I love to encourage people that their dreams are not a figment of their imagination, just showing them glimpses of their future. You just can't be afraid to fail. And I think too many people are tight. It's just like if a boxer that's in the ring that's real tight, he loses. But the boxer that goes with the flow is the one that wins. So I think in life, we have to loosen up a little bit. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. And you will find your passion. Once you find your passion, you'll find your purpose. But you may have to go down several different roads to find that. And that's what it's all about. I think everybody's a work in progress. It's so important. I always tell people, praise progress, but not perfection. That's what it's all about. And also, too, you know, you got to incorporate a lot of different things. You mentioned spirituality. Spirituality is at the top of my life. I mean, I know for a fact that the scripture says, you train a child in the way he should go or she should go, they will never depart. So I think that's also to a pivotal point, to make sure that you have a great spiritual foundation in your life. And also, too, you got to venture, because life is a journey. You go through ups and downs. But in most cases, I keep reflecting back to this, that most people spend more time outside of themselves watching other people's success, watching what other people do, and less time with themselves. That's the reason why they never find it.
I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious. Like, I want to stay on this topic because I think it's something really unique. When Neil, like, what's your concept of purpose? Because like I know we were going to dive a little into this, like, because I'm just like, I wrote about this the other day, and like Aristotle talks about how it's the state of which someone's nature is fulfilled. So, you know, I know you don't really have a religious background, Neil. So I'm like really curious to know, like, what does purpose mean to you? Like, from a philosophical standpoint.
Helping people.
Okay.
Philanthropy, altruism, just it makes me feel good to give, whether it's in business or life. It's like you and I talk about, Cody, pay it forward gestures, and give with no expectations of getting back. It just feels like the right thing to do. And I think that, Rory, I'd be curious your lens on that and your perspective on that, and how that translates to people that you coach.
That's funny. From listening to Neil, to me, he's taking a spiritual route. And the average person take a religious route. I'll give you guys the difference. The scripture says religion chokes the spirit. So a religious person is a person that is structured, that is pretty much given an agenda. And I refuse to be a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. So I think that Neil is leaning more towards spiritual, even though he doesn't claim it, because when you are spiritual, you do things basically from your heart. You do things a little unorthodox, and people may not understand it. But I always tell people, if you want to be successful, you got to go the opposite way of the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we talk about that a lot about, finding ways to attract your tribe, and finding it's really drawing a line in the sand. Like I'm really curious, because, we're like, a lot of this has to really do with like mindset and choosing that point in which you're going to either go this way, like go left or right. So I was listening to a song before we hopped on this podcast, and one of the lines in the song was "Fix your mind state. That's where all the capital comes." So I'm really curious, Rory, like, how important do you think mindset is to increasing revenue for the entrepreneur? I know that you have a financial background. I'm curious, with you seem to dive into a bunch of different things. I'm curious your take on like mindset in relation to an entrepreneur going to that next level, or even a business person or a CEO, or like, how important is mindset? And then maybe what are 3 tactics that you have, you maybe teach that are helping entrepreneurs, CEOs move forward?
Having a relentless mindset without any physical activity. I'm going to say it again, having a relentless mindset without physical activity. In other words, your greatest asset is your mindset. And if your mindset is not positioned correctly, you're not going to really be successful going toward whatever you're trying to pursue. So what I know and what I've learned in my 57 years, that your mindset is your greatest asset. And that's what it's all about. Everything is about habits. So many people want to be an entrepreneur, but I always tell people that if you really want to be an entrepreneur, are you willing on turning your 9 to 5 into your 5 to 9? Which means if you're not willing on working 16 hours a day for yourself, you're not truly an entrepreneur. People that want to be entrepreneurs, I call them entrepreneurs, the people that don't want to do what it takes to become successful. Everything is about investing in yourself. That's what it's all about. And we all know that an asset is putting money in your pocket, and a liability is taking money out of your pocket. So you have to live your life that way, a life that's full of assets, a life that's full of results. And once you do that, you get to the point where you fall in love with it, and you have money for a lifetime and not a lunchtime.
Yeah, I love that.
How do you think that mindset gets shifted? Like, is there a certain thing that, it's like, it's one thing to say, shift your mindset. Is there a practice that you take your people through in order to get there?
Yes,
you seem to be really successful.
Yeah, I take my people through what we call a result-oriented lifestyle, which means never let a day go by without a result. So what we have to keep this in mind, it takes about 21 days to develop a habit. And it takes at least 21 days to get rid of a habit. Most people can't go 21 days toward anything.
It's true.
So when you start off daily with daily goals, because I believe that monthly goals are pretty much goals that give you more time. But when you give yourself a daily goal and you start to achieve things on a daily basis, it becomes a lifestyle. And that's what it's all about. It's really all about putting yourself in a position where you can do small things, little wins, because I always tell people less is more. That's what it's all about. But in society, we see so many things that are big, the things that we want, our dreams are big. But the bottom line is if you really want to make your dream become a reality, you have to learn how to minimize it in order to maximize it. So that's one of the strategies that I work with my people on minimizing in order to maximize, not maximizing and then minimizing in terms of what their results may be. So it's all about minimizing first, getting small baby wins, and then it becomes a lifestyle. And that's when you get the big wins.
Yeah, I love that. I love that approach. And Rory, what has this year taught you? I mean, we're in an unprecedented year in history that we're going to look back on. There's going to be many books on this year on the pandemic and the political atmosphere and polarizing atmosphere. But what has it taught you? Did it test your resilience at all this year, or your mindset and the people that you coached? Were you seeing different levels of confusion and uncertainty than you ever have before?
Actually, this year, in the midst of a pandemic, has been one of my most productive years. And the reason it's been one of my most productive years is simply because I couldn't pretty much foresee or predict what was going to happen with the pandemic. However, I did see what was coming down the pipeline with the economy, because we're living right now in a time like never before in America, where the average American before the pandemic, Neil, was 1 to 2 paychecks away from being homeless. And 1 out of 3 Americans and Canadians carry credit card debt. Yet we live in one of the richest countries in the world. Why is that? That's a lack of financial literacy and artificial intelligence. So now we go into the banks, we see machines. We go into the supermarket, we see machines, the airport machines. And in the next 5 years, about 85 million jobs are going to be displaced to artificial intelligence. So I seen what was happening on the financial structure. And that's the reason why my clients are very, very happy, because I helped them in terms of their assets and their investments, because I saw what was coming down that aisle. But now, since the pandemic is here and people are pretty much disenfranchised and the consumer's confidence is not there anymore for us to be next to one another, now it's all about the social media and it's all about the smartphone. So I think it's incredible that you can sit in the house and talk and be many places at the same time. It's sort of incredible, because prior to this, I was in airports, traveling, going to all different types of places. Now I can sit in the comfort of my home and talk to people like you guys and connect and do certain different things. I think it's a great time. And after the pandemic, I personally believe that it's not going to come back the same, but I think about 95% out there are thinking that it's going to come back the same. And those are going to be the ones that's going to miss this wave. Because right now it's a powerful wave on the financial side as well as on history. It's a powerful wave right now in the financial world. So you guys will know this. Maybe about $27 trillion are sitting in retirement plans. And we got 2 million baby boomers retiring every single day. So in my world, the financial world, it's a big amount of opportunity. But in terms of technology and artificial intelligence, I personally believe that it's not going to come back the same. So if people don't get their shift together, I didn't curse, I said shift together now, they're going to get caught up. So Neil thought I cursed. I say, see, so what are you talking about?
Yeah, it was like, what's going on?
Neil was back in his chair.
So I'm really curious, because, me and Neil have had multiple conversations about this when the pandemic started, about how the average business carries about 21 days of cash flow. So I'm curious, what should business owners, what should people, what should CEOs, what should CFP, like all the people that you work with, what should they be aware of in regards to this opportunity? How do they take advantage of the opportunity? But how do they also stay ready if something were to happen, like lockdown again? Like, what recommendations are you giving to your clients, and what recommendations would you give to our audience here?
Well, my recommendation is that the average millionaire has about 6 streams of income. Mm-hmm. An average American Canadian has 2 jobs. So it's so important right now that you create multiple streams of income, no matter what it may be. It could be something small. I don't care if it's baking cookies or it may be a service, but you got to create multiple streams of income. And at the same token, you have to pretty much stay ahead of the game. In other words, what's happening now, which means it's time now to start educating yourself and about social media and technology. You got to really dive into it, and you got to really use it, because that's where it's at right now. Because during this pandemic, corporations have discovered that they can still make a profit and survive with less overhead.
Yeah.
And it's all about saving money. So CEOs and business owners got to pretty much upgrade your mentality, upgrade your outlook. I was just this morning looking in the Wall Street Journal, and there's a paint company called Sherwin-Williams. I'm sure you guys probably heard about that.
Yeah.
And Sherwin-Williams had this little young guy working for him that had an entrepreneur spirit that was just sampling paint, doing different things with different types of designs. And he went to them and said, hey, look, I got this good idea. They turned him down, and another company in Florida hired him with this idea. Now it's on top of the world. So it's really all about being willing on right now, taking a leap of faith in terms of doing things. This is the time now to get prepared during this pandemic. And I think this is the best time because like right now, my marketing strategy is I need to be everywhere at one time, and I can finally do it.
Yeah. And speaking of marketing and social media strategy, tell us your Instagram strategy. I like your Instagram page. I've been checking out and research for this podcast, and you're styling, by the way. You have GQ style. Kudos to you. No, I love that. But
that happened during this pandemic as a hobby. Just okay. Neil, that's funny that you said that. The clothing happened just as a hobby during this pandemic. I said to myself, you know what? I need to do something else. I'm going to try something else. Okay, well, I'm a tall guy, whatever. You know what I'm going to do? My daughter said, hey, Dad, you like to dress. Why don't you start showing your clothes? Okay, great. I did it. I went outside the box and I actually did it. So I think right now it's what it's all about. Right now, we got to do it scared. It doesn't matter what it may be. You got to go for it. And I always tell people the thing that you think that is not good for you, in most cases, it is good for you in terms of business. We get so comfortable with what we can do comfortably. But can you get comfortable being uncomfortable? That's what it's all about. So when I'm comfortable, I don't feel that really, really good. I like to be uncomfortable because I know when I'm uncomfortable, I'm growing. I'm always developing, always elevating.
Always beta testing. Always beta testing. I think you should start a TikTok account with those. Every day you're showing up in a different outfit. It would do really well. I'm really bullish on TikTok. And I want to, I know we have to finish up soon, but I want to talk about your podcast a bit. So I checked out a few episodes of that. Walk people through, the name of it is Holler at a Scholar, which is great, by the way. Walk us through how you came up with that, the name, and you know what you're trying to get out of that, if anything, in terms of ROI, leverage, or just giving away information.
Well, Holler at a Scholar is also too, Neil, in terms of Instagram. Everything that I'm doing right now, I'm not expecting a result right now. Everything that I'm doing is pretty much it's all already pretty much it's a strategy behind it. In other words, everything that we do today, everything that you guys do today is going to set you up for tomorrow. So my whole objective now is to get as many podcasting episodes in, as much social networking in as possible, because it's content. And that's what's going to happen in this new technical world. It's a lack of content. So now it's all about content. So it's not about necessarily getting some instant gratification, but it's about just being consistent, because consistency is the key to success. So I'm going to do as many podcast episodes as I can, as many social media presence as I can, because I'm outworking people. That's what it's all about. You got to just do a lot. But most people are looking for something right away, but you're building something. That's what it's all about. So content is key. So I know content at the end of the road, that's exactly when everything connects. That's when I'm going to really, really capitalize. But Holler at a Scholar is basically a podcast that's basically dealing with something like gumbo. You guys ever heard of it? It's a Southern dish. Gumbo. Yes. You put everything inside. It's a gumbo. It basically talks about everything: financial literacy, entrepreneurism, technology. We talk about life skills. We talk about challenges, disappointments, setbacks. So Holler at a Scholar is dealing with so many different things, and it's unpredictable. It's unorthodox. That's my whole philosophy with my podcast, because I can talk about anything. I'm not really scripted. When I talk to people, I talk from my heart. So that's what it's all about. And I always tell people, and this is real, real important. People today, they don't buy books. They don't buy music. They buy you. And that's where most people struggle, in my opinion. They struggle because they're not pretty much showing who they really are, whether it's the sides that may not be so good. You may not be good at something, or you're good at something. I think that you got to be willing on showing all sides in order to be your full potential. to be who you are.
Authenticity is so key, especially in the social environment. We see that with the clients that we work with. You mentioned content, and I really want to wrap up with this question around content, because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with creating content. I think that a lot of the entrepreneurs I talk with, they're like, we're just so busy running our business, or we're so busy in the day-to-day operations of running that business. How do I manage to actually find the time of the day in order to create content? Because that's so many conversations with, our clients, but with also with marketing directors. They're like, we're supposed to run these social media accounts, but we don't know how to shift our mindset from, shifting our mindset towards being a media company. What advice would you have for somebody that's just kind of stuck? They want to create content. Where do they start?
When you've been there like I have from the bottom up, I don't buy any excuses. When people don't want to shift, it's really fear. I'm just being honest. When people don't want to shift, it's just fear. That's all it is. They use that word shift, but the bottom line is really fear.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I was saying earlier that it's really all about taking your imagination and doing it in real time. Doing something that you may think that you may not be good at, but just do it anyway. Just try it. That's what it's all about. So I think most entrepreneurs, they don't take a chance. They don't really take a chance. And I think that we'll tell people, Neil, that, hey, you got to take a chance to become an entrepreneur. But entrepreneurs really don't take chances. They're very safe. But if you really want to be a real entrepreneur, you got to be willing to take chances.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Risk takers, passion. Yeah.
And don't overthink things.
We say that, but really, we don't really do that. We say that, we don't do that.
Well, that's our competitive advantage, the 1% who do.
That we say that, we're taking risks, but we're really trying to play it safe.
Yeah.
We're trying to play it safe. I always tell people, especially when it comes down to finance, whoever controls your money controls you. And the bottom line is that only suckers save money. So if you get money, you take that money to make money. And entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs are willing on reinvesting in themselves, investing in themselves. And that's what I do. I am pretty much a stickler of investing in myself. And even if it's social media, it's going to cost you 10 grand, write a check. I'm investing in myself. If it's that, do it. I'm investing in myself. And all of it is pretty much asset driven, and it's content driven. And that's going to pay off in the long run, especially what you guys are doing. You're building something that's going to pay off in the long run. But don't get caught up into the instant gratification and start looking, man, I'm not going nowhere. It's not going the way I want it to go. Don't get caught up with that. That's just an illusion. The bottom line is that if you really, really know what you're doing, if you're winning within your mind and you have a plan and a purpose, that's what it's all about. You're going to win.
Wow. Great value, great wisdom, great nuggets. How can people learn more about you? Where would they go to? Your website, Instagram page? What's the best place to learn more about Rory Douglas?
Well, they could go, first of all, this is my new book. It's an Amazon international bestseller.
Congrats.
And it's with some heavy hitters like Tony Robbins, which is a colleague of mine, Jim Britt from the Shark Tank, and then Kevin Harrington from ABC Shark Tank, and Jim Britt is a life coach. So this week paired up together and did this book. It's called Cracking the Rich Code. It's currently an international bestseller and it's doing phenomenal. But people can go to rorydouglas.net, and they can get all of my handles. And also they can go to my firm if they want to. It's called aquafinancial.net, Aqua Financial Center, rather, aquafinancialcenter.net, aquafinancialcenter.net. And right now during pandemic, I'm giving free financial literacy workshop classes.
Wow. Grab that. Rory, we love talking to people like-minded, and definitely feel like we're like-minded. Really appreciate your time, just a ton of value. And thank you so much for tuning in another episode of the StudioPTBO podcast. Really appreciate your attention. Again, we're just on a mission to help passionate, energetic entrepreneurs with marketing and mindset knowledge, help them build, grow, and scale their business online. If you're listening back on iTunes or Spotify, we want to say thank you. Thank you once again, Rory. Thank you, Neil. And thank you for tuning into the StudioPTBO podcast. We will see you soon.